Singapore's 15-year-olds impress on the world stage, topping the OECD's PISA test for global competence.
Thailand lifts a state of emergency in Bangkok after more than a week of daily anti-government protests.
And sparks fly as Barack Obama slams Donald Trump for having a secret bank account in China.
How is that possible? How is that possible? A secret Chinese bank account. Listen, can you imagine if I had a secret Chinese bank account?
Hello there, you're watching The Big Story coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Haryanto Diman.
And I'm Olivia Quay. Hey, subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
15-year-olds in Singapore, so secondary 3 students, scored the highest in an international assessment of their ability to understand and act on intercultural and global issues.
Well, this is the global competence test conducted back in 2018 by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development as part of the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, and about 250,000 15-year-olds in 27 countries sat for it.
The assessment defined global competence as the capacity to examine local, global and intercultural issues, understand and appreciate different perspectives and worldviews,
as well as the capacity to interact successfully and respectfully with others and take responsible action towards sustainability and collective well-being.
The assessment was in 2 parts. First, a cognitive test assessed students on their knowledge of issues of local and global significance. As you can see from these sample questions, these issues included public health, economic and environmental issues, as well as their intercultural knowledge, skills and attitudes.
Well, the second part was a background questionnaire where students were asked how familiar they are with global issues and how they develop their linguistic and communication skills, and to what extent they hold certain attitudes and what opportunities they have at school to develop global competence.
PISA has used math, science and reading as key measures in the past.
And this new global competence component seems to be taking these assessments in another direction. Well, here to tell us more is Senior Education Correspondent at the Straits Times, Sandra Davey. Now, Sandra, the Education Ministry said it was heartened by the findings that 15-year-olds in Singapore did so well in global competence. But what is the significance of this and how do we interpret the results?
Well, I think it's very significant and very meaningful, and we should be celebrating our #1 ranking in this particular test, because let's face it, in our very interconnected world, this global competence, being able to understand local global issues and being able to have the right skills to be able to discuss different perspectives, different viewpoints and understand where they're coming from. These are all important skills for our young people as well as citizens of Singapore. Well, you know, when I reported on the PISA test results on math, science and reading, there was quite a bit of disappointment because our students who were first in these 3 areas in the earlier tests fell to #2 position. But back then I wrote a commentary saying that it's okay to be #2 in these areas because we were up there anyway in terms of our scores.
Sandra, how were our secondary 3 students able to outperform other countries in global competency skills?
Well, you know, right back in 2010, the Ministry of Education came up with a document called the 21st Century Competencies, where they tried to look at the competencies and skills and knowledge that our kids will have to be nurtured in our kids for them to thrive in this interconnected world, right? Where they have to come across different perspectives, different worldviews, and be able to collaborate and work with people from other cultures. And following that, our schools put up curricular and co-curricular activities to nurture these skills. So we've been doing it for 10 years, really. And that's part of the reason why our kids have been able to do well in this competence test. Also, don't forget our language policy, our bilingual policy, and our programs where we try to teach kids a third language even, at least at the conversational level. All this has really helped our kids be able to talk to people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and that's an important part of this global competency skills that OECD was measuring.
Right. Well, as Haryanto mentioned earlier, Sandra, PISA typically assesses math, science and reading, and now global competency. Will OECD continue to test these sort of soft skills and competencies, you think, outside of the more academic subjects?
Right. So PISA is conducted every 3 years, and you have something like 500,000 kids from over 70 countries taking part in these tests. And every 3 years, it does measure math, science, and reading. But in recent years, it started adding on other tests which they feel are important because it tests and assesses students on other competencies. So the one in 2015, for example, looked at collaborative problem solving, and guess what? Our kids came in #1 in that. This time round is global competency because, again, it's a very important skill and to master, to live in this modern interconnected world. And for PISA 2021, they'll be looking at creative thinking, which again is becoming very important, especially in this age of automation.
Right. Sandra, this global competency test was done in 2018, which means it doesn't reflect how and what students are learning in a very exceptional 2020. Do you think students are more aware and critical of global affairs in this COVID-19 climate?
Well, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic just underscores the need for such competencies and skills. And our schools have actually been talking about COVID-19, have woven that into the curriculum, be it science or be it social studies or geography, and have been discussing the various issues connected to the COVID-19 pandemic in classrooms. So yes, I think it's a very rich learning experience for our kids, and affects us all individually, families as well, and as a nation. So yes, it's an excellent way to nurture more of these skills and competencies.
Right, great points there, Sandra. Thank you so much for coming on to the show to speak with us. We've been speaking to Sandra Devi, Senior Education Correspondent at the Straits Times.
A link to Sandra's piece on the global competency test is in the description below if you're watching us on YouTube.
On to the latest COVID-19 situation here. 8 new cases were confirmed today, including 1 case from a workers' dormitory. The remaining 7 were imported and had been placed on stay-home notices when they arrived in Singapore. Now, more details will be released tonight.
In other local news, an online chatbot is now available to those feeling stressed amid the COVID-19 pandemic. This to help them build mental resilience and learn self-care. The platform will give users access to meditation, breathing, yoga, motivational conversations and exercises, and users are promised anonymity.
Allied educators who help students with learning difficulties will have more avenues for career growth in the coming years. In recognition of their growing importance, the Education Ministry said today that more high-level positions will be created for them, providing learning and behavioral support. These are non-teaching staff working with students in mainstream schools who have mild special needs like dyslexia, autism and ADHD. They will have their own development track when the Allied Educator Scheme is split into distinct tracks in 2022.
And Muslim organizations here, including the Islamic Religious Council of Singapore, have condemned the beheading of a teacher in France after he showed caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad in class. The organizations also called for an end to violence and terrorism in the name of religion and said that such acts run counter to the values of Islam.
Let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. Thailand's government lifted emergency measures today in an attempt to end months of protests against Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and the monarchy. The measures, which had prompted even bigger demonstrations, were lifted from 1 p.m. Singapore time. But protesters who have given Mr. Prayut a 3-day deadline to resign said that withdrawing the measures was not enough.
With less than 2 weeks to go until Election Day in the US, the gloves have officially come off. Former President Barack Obama hit the campaign trail for Joe Biden in Pennsylvania, while President Donald Trump went to swing state North Carolina. Both men ended up ripping into each other at their respective rallies on Wednesday night.
Can you imagine if I had a secret Chinese bank account when I was running for re-election? They would have called me Beijing Barry.
President Obama's campaigning for Sleepy Joe Biden. And I said, that's good news or bad news? Tell me, are you saying it's good or it's bad? Well, I guess it's bad. No, it's good. There was nobody that campaigned harder for crooked Hillary Clinton than Obama, right?
Meanwhile, Mr. Trump's challenger Joe Biden has been off the campaign trail all week, preparing for the final presidential debate on Thursday night in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a chance for him to extend his lead in the opinion polls, which show Mr. Trump running second.
A volunteer in clinical trials for the Oxford and AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine has died in Brazil. It's the first such death reported in the various vaccine trials taking place worldwide. Now, media reports said he had received a placebo, not the test vaccine. Organizers of the study said an independent review had found no safety concerns and that testing would continue. Around 8,000 volunteers have been vaccinated so far in Brazil and more than 20,000 worldwide.
So on Thursdays, to help you plan your weekend, we check in with our colleagues at Live for some ideas. So let's start with an indie film you can watch at the projector.
That's right. St. Francis is about Bridget, a nanny who doesn't like kids. It also explores her budding friendship with Frances, the 6-year-old girl that she looks after. There's an unwanted pregnancy as well, and that, of course, can complicate any matter.
Yeah, we have to hear what our film correspondent John Rui thinks of this one. Hi, John. Now, John, the movie won several major festive audience awards. Do you like it, John?
Oh, I really liked it. It's funny without going overboard, and it's very true. It's a frank movie.
I see. How is it different from, other movies with similar themes, like the main character finding herself or himself, and as well as, that unusual friendship that you can have with a young child?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's what we call an adulting comedy. You have a man or woman, they have a failure to launch issues. They just they're stuck in a rut and they don't know how to get their lives in order. Well, our main character, she's like that. She's played quite wonderfully by Kelly O'Sullivan. And she fakes her way, she bluffs her way into a nanny job, and then she struggles and she copes. What's different about this is how honest it is with the life of this woman and the unexpected things she learns along the way when she becomes a nanny to this precocious child, Frances, who gives a wonderful, very funny performance, by the way. She steals the whole show.
All right, humor right there. So something we have to catch here, Olivia. Well, thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
That was film correspondent at the Straits Times, John Louis. St. Francis is currently showing at the projector.
Well, if you're looking to check out something in the arts and culture realm instead, why not try the NUS Barber House?
Who better to share more on this than senior culture correspondent Ong Sofen. Hi, Sofen. Sofen, you wrote that the NUS Barber House is overlooked in terms of the museum scene. I admit I haven't heard it before. Why don't you tell us more?
Okay, the NUS Barber House, I have to confess that I also have overlooked it over the years. It opened in 2008 and I only got around to visiting it recently. And it's a really nice house. but it's kind of like off the beaten path a little. It's located along New Road opposite the Outram Park MRT station, and it's actually quite easy to get to if you make an effort. You need to book a time slot before you can actually visit the place.
Yeah.
But the admission is free, and the time slot will also allow you to get a docent tour of the facility. So it's a really nice way to spend a morning.
Wow. So, Sophan, once we get into the museum, how is it different from the other Peranakan museums in terms of what it showcases?
The NUS Baba House is, as its name suggests, is owned by the National University of Singapore. So it's actually also a teaching tool for the students of the university. So when you go in there, it's been restored to like almost its full glory already. And actually the students use it to learn about like old building techniques, and also before it opened, the archaeological students actually did a dig in the house to look at like some of the things that were buried in the backyard and all that. So it's actually quite fun to go and revisit maybe like a few months down the road, because they are constantly renovating and updating the thing. They add to the collection. When I went, they had just added a couple of like really interesting ornate mirrors to the furniture in the hall.
Wow, okay, well, it definitely sounds like something worth a trip. So thank you so much, Sophan, for sharing that with us. We've been chatting with the Straits Times' senior culture correspondent, Ong Sophan.
Now we have a live pics playlist on YouTube where you can get more ideas on how to spend your weekend.
So Haryanto, we have heard, a couple of ideas on how we can, just do just that in the next few days. So anything between the movie and the
I
house?
would go for the movie because it's been a while since I last caught the movie, and also I think I will relate to the character because I am not particularly fond of kids and children. But which one would you go for?
I would go for the Baba House because I love Peranakan culture, and I think all the items with the very intricate details are just so beautiful.
Are you part Peranakan, by the way?
I am not.
Okay.
But that won't stop me at all. So for more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.